ever done. So,
The acting, first time.
and it was very hard to be so serious for that promo, I must tell you. It was on crime and everything. So,
So sorry to inform you that Karan Patel, the show host, could not make it because the doctor advised him he's sick. So we're sorry for that. So it's been 4 years, 5 seasons, and we finally have a book. So are we ready for the book launch? Yes.
it's an oversized book.
All right, so what do we do?
So Ira is the author of the book, and Chetan sir has given the foreword. So Ira, what was your favorite part of the book? And can we have the book reading done?
Sure. So I'm going to. I'm not sure favorite is the right word with stories that are a little horrific, but I'm going to tell you about a short story which I felt was, I don't know, particularly disturbing. Maybe because in some ways I could relate to it in my own life. And when I was writing this book, when I was writing this particular story, I really somehow felt like I put a little bit of myself in it, at least the background part of it. So the story is called Naz. And the story begins with two teenagers who have lived in the US and they moved back to a small town in Haryana because their father has gotten a new job. So a little bit similar to my background because I too moved from the US to Indore, a small town, when I was about in the ninth standard. And so she moves to school, she goes to a junior college, and her brother, and it's very hard for them to make friends because they're these kids, they're from out of town, they're very different. All the kids in this town are pretty, small-minded. She doesn't speak Hindi very well. And her brother especially, he was very popular back in the US. He was a very good football player. And he comes back and it's hard for them to make friends. And the brother then falls into some bad company. It's a bunch of four boys, and they have a gang, and they're quite, they're bunking classes, they're always getting into trouble. One of the boys, his father's an important politician, so they can't kick him out of school. And so eventually, the brother makes friends with these kids, and they're always coming over to his house. And Naz, who is his sister, she's happy because she feels, wait, my brother's making friends, maybe these friends can be my friends as well. And so one day when she goes out, it's during her exams, her parents go for a wedding, she can't go because she has to take her exams. She goes out to pick up a movie, and in those days, you had those movie rental shops. So she goes out to pick up a movie to watch as a study break, and she bumps into these four boys. And when she comes back, they sort of invite themselves over to her house, these four boys, and they say, can we come over to watch the movie? And she says, okay. And when she does invite them, they start acting funny. As she watches the movie, and there's no one at home. Her parents and her brother have gone for the wedding, and then they rape her. They rape her that night, and when her parents come back, she's too embarrassed to tell them what has happened, and she goes into a depression. So, and this is a true story. So I'm going to just read a little bit of that section of what happened. So the story is told from two points of views, her brother's and hers. And so this is Naz. And Naz means pride. So the story also means how her own pride was broken by the injustice that was done to her. For days I was numb, unfeeling. I felt as if I were stuck in a nightmare that I hoped would end very soon. But it was unending, and the more I moped, the more I kept to myself, the deeper I sank into depression. I didn't want to tell anyone or talk to anyone. I only wanted to be by myself, alone, because a part of me kept on saying that the nightmare would end soon. But it didn't. It just got darker and darker, till one day, even though I'd said that I would not, I told AB everything. AB is her brother. Once I did, I felt as if a huge weight was lifted from my shoulders, but I was also more scared. What would happen now? AB was shocked, angry, violent, sad. He broke down and holding his head in his hands, he blamed himself for everything, for befriending those criminals, for bringing them home, for his poor judgment. But unlike me, despite being devastated, he took action, beginning by telling my parents. Papa did not want to go to the police. He did not trust them. He thought that we should deal with it ourselves instead of turning it into a public scandal handled by inept authorities. Mom, on the other hand, was both livid and crying at the same time, put her foot down and told him that she would move heaven and earth to make sure that those boys got sentenced, and that to happen we had to seek redress and get justice. And justice we did get. Within weeks, all 4 boys were charged with rape. Nab, Arjun, and Rakshay were sentenced to lifetime terms in prison. Ronak was below 18, was sent to a juvenile correction center. The judge, a kind old lady, assured us that she would ensure that he got his due punishment, though it looked unlikely at the present moment. In one way, I was satisfied with the outcome of the trial, but in another, I knew that it didn't really matter because something fundamental within me had been destroyed. And no one, no lawyer, no judge, no arm of justice could ever restore that. So, also in this story are little elements of the Nirbhaya rape case, and that's why I had one character who was sentenced to a juvenile facility. So, several of the stories are a little disturbing, but they're important stories to read, and they are educational, and they're quite gripping. I'm not saying that these are really dark and you're going to get depressed if you read them. Don't think that. They are pretty gripping. They are pretty thrilling, and I do think that especially if you like crime stories, these are exciting to read as well.
Interesting.